Welcome to We Question and Learn. This is Tom Pines. We're celebrating our 20th year on the air here at WQLN FM 91.3, related to WQLN television. And the reason I bring that up is because I have on the telephone an honored guest, Robert Chatfield. What a pleasure to have you on the air with me today. Robert is president and CEO of the Free to Choose Network. And Robert, could you tell our great audience how your organization, way back when, related to WQLN?
So WQLN was founded by Bob Chittister, who is the founder of the Free to Choose Network. So our organizations have had a long storied history with each other, and a good history at that, by the way. WQLN, I believe, is currently showing our three-part series, Free to Speak, on the air right now. So not sure when this program is going to get broadcast, but I'm sure you can go back onto the PBS and go find Free to Speak if you wanted to thus watch that. But Bob Chittister was the original producer of Milton Friedman's 10-part series, Free to Choose, and that's how the Free to Choose Network got its name.
Robert, how long have you been involved in the organization?
I have now been president for a little over 7 years. It doesn't seem like it. It seems like I'm still learning so much every day on the job, but guys like Tom Pies are out there to help me. So, and happy 20th anniversary to you on this program,
thank
my
you.
friend.
I'm not here as long as unfortunately our leader, Bob Chittister, passed away. Wow. Now I've lost track of that. It's got to be 4 years?
3 years now.
3 years.
Yeah, about 3 years.
That was close. And a very sad day. As you know, he is the founder. He did an excellent job in creating something that's been in the Erie, Northwest Pennsylvania market over 50 years. Your organization is just as old, am I guessing correctly?
Just about. So we're, we've got to be approaching our 40th anniversary coming up here. The Milton Friedman program was actually put on the air in 1980, and then Bob founded this organization a few years after that.
Now, your duties as assigned, you oversee all the departments in a wonderful 24-plus person organization. You're still growing. Robert Chatfield, you travel all over the country, if not all over the world, for this organization.
Absolutely. I was going to say the last 2 years, I have averaged over 200 nights a year on the road. People think, by the way, that's, I'm out on location filming at all these wonderful, wonderful places, but they don't realize most of the time I'm out there trying to raise money, bringing some funds back to the Erie, Pennsylvania market to help support those people who are in the Erie office.
Yeah. Could you just give us a brief history? Did this start as a production company, an outreach company? What were your motivations way back when?
And Free to Choose Network still is a production company. So we produce our primary distribution market is still public television. Although obviously we have YouTube channel, Roku channels, all that good stuff in terms of alternative distribution points. But most of what we produce is still absolutely for public television. That's our number one market. The organization started because Bob Chittister was a producer. And one of the things that Bob had done, he did several programs throughout the years, but one I'm really proud of and would really like to reignite is Bob started something called the Idea Channel. And his premise for this was just put two smart people in the room and turn on the camera so you can eavesdrop in on their conversation. And these conversations features many Nobel laureates that back in the day, as I said, there was no podcasting, all that other stuff you have in terms of alternative television and audio right now. So what Bob was doing back then was really revolutionary in terms of putting public intellectuals in the room together. Some of that stuff, you can still find that on our website, by the way, at freetochoosenetwork.org. And go to Idea Channel, and you can see some discussions from, as I said, some fabulous people on a wide variety of topics. And that's something I think that's missing in public discourse today, by the way, is just hearing from people with differing views.
Well, you folks were internet in a certain point of view before there was internet. You were out distributing excellent programs, outreach, education. From a television point of view, the video, audio concept of delivering information. It had to have been somewhat of a change going to the digital era for you?
Not especially. We've always been about trying to reach a broad mass market audience with Free to Choose Network. And so that was just, again, it was a natural offshoot with regards to the public television programming itself. So you're correct, though. As I said, we've been out there. We were early to the game with video-based education materials for teachers, for example. We used to give away a DVD every single year to a teacher just for asking. And so, we were always in terms of looking for these different market segments. So the online world and the digital world for us is really, that's always been a natural extension.
People can find you on freetochoosenetwork.org, correct?
Absolutely.
Hey, something you have in your September bag of tricks is an Innovators Freedom Fest. Tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, I was going to say, so I hope I'm talking the same thing that you're talking about here. But with regards to, we have gone to an organization called Freedom Fest and exhibited there for many years.
Okay.
And Freedom Fest is the largest gathering of libertarian-minded people in the United States, if not the world. And so generally speaking, we will exhibit something there. This year, our feature was actually Steve Forbes. We've been doing a series called Steve Forbes on Achievement. It's being distributed through izzit.org. That's IZZIT.org. But Free to Choose Network is the film production studio. And Steve Forbes on this project here is trying to highlight entrepreneurs that most people have never heard of that have really changed their lives. And we really wanted to get these people in front of students to show students that entrepreneurial way of thinking. A couple of great examples are Margaret Rudkin. There's an entrepreneur you've probably never heard of, Tom.
No.
But she is responsible for all those goldfish crackers that every single child just can't live without, She was the founder of Pepperidge Farm, and it started because her child had an allergy. And so when people look at how a business gets started, it's not that, you need a ton of money, all this sort of stuff here. A lot of times it's an idea born out of something that happened personally. And almost always it's trials and tribulations. So, as legend has it, Margaret Rudkin needed to make bread out of a whole grain and whole wheat because her son was allergic. And so she diligently put together a recipe and baked her first loaf, and it came out hard as a rock.
Oh, no.
And so, so it was not an overnight success, but Margaret Rudkin persevered, and she actually charged, even during the Great Depression, she was charging premium prices for her product because she thought people would pay up for something that was more healthy. You can fast forward nearly 80 years from there, and we're in the beginning stages of trying to do a biography of John Mackey. And John Mackey is the founder of the Whole Foods Company, Whole Foods Market. And if you think about it, it's the same exact type of story where John just wanted to have people eat a healthier diet. And what he ended up doing was changing the entire world in terms of what is organic farming. How do you certify something as organic? How do you grow something that's organic? So and now every grocery store that you walk into has an organic section. That stuff didn't occur until somebody like John Mackey said, hey, we need to make a supermarket, not just a little specialty store, if you will. We need to make a supermarket where people can go and get all their groceries and just eat better. So as I said, the variety of products that we work on and the entrepreneurs that we try to work with and feature, I think are things that should be inspirational to students and adults alike.
Let's go back to the core of Free to Choose. And I'm going to make an assumption that it is all these wonderful, I call them television programs, but in this day and age, all these wonderful productions. Could you talk about the most recent one that you've produced?
So a couple of them that I'd love to feature for you here. First is a 1-hour program called We Hold These Truths. And that's about the Declaration of Independence and about how it was an aspirational document. People are wondering, my gosh, our founders, they want to pick on the founders. They were slave owners. They want to say all these things about dead white guys, if you will. But if you think about what the Declaration was, it was an aspirational document. And every generation has to live up to that aspirational document. How are we doing today? Don't judge the founders, judge yourself with regards to how you're living up to the aspirational words of that document. So we take a look at it from how the Declaration was used by the women's rights movement, the abolitionist movement, in terms of the civil rights movement. All these people reference that document, and that's how our country has become a more perfect union. And it's not perfect, but it's getting ever better all the time. Not only that, but how did the document influence other countries? I forget how many countries there are, but it's probably nearly half of the countries in the world have some sort of Declaration of Independence, oftentimes modeled word for word after ours. They might have a different list of grievances, but it's the influence has been worldwide.
That's fascinating. As I look at your website, Free to Speak is another program that seems
Absolutely.
to be very important as a production for you.
Yeah, and that's the second one I wanted to highlight. So we feature here Nadine Strauss, and Nadine used to be the president of the ACLU, and she is a free speech absolutist. And by that, I mean, she believes everybody has the right to free speech because that's the only way that you can go out and win the argument in public sphere. It's to get the ideas out there. I don't care how bad the idea is, how poorly thought out the idea is, who's speaking the idea. Nadine believes everyone should have that opportunity. So rather than take the hot button issues of today, we went through, and that's a 3-part series, by the way. We went through and looked a lot through history to show how history repeats itself over and over again. So our documentary really doesn't mention Fauci. It really doesn't mention the Facebooks of the world squelching information about the virus and where it might have originated, any of that stuff. But instead, we'll take you back through time to Peru, or we'll take you somewhere. We'll take you to Greece. We'll take you all sorts of places back into time to see what happens when government tries to suppress information. We'll take a look at when religions try to suppress information. We'll take a look at comedy throughout the time frame. We'll take a look at all these different things there so that people can draw their own parallels to today to see that these issues are evergreen and that more free speech is almost always the answer as opposed to censorship or suppression.
I see almost, if not more than 30 different series and programs on the website. How long have these been around? Some of these have been here for quite a while, going back to the original Free to Choose series.
Yeah, we've been trying to average 2 to 3 hours of programming per year. This year, we actually purposely did not release anything because I thought during this presidential cycle, we just wouldn't catch any traction whatsoever. Mm-hmm. And we had enough that we had released last year with regards to the Declaration of Independence and Free to Speak that I wanted to try to extend the lifespan of some of those projects rather than continuously just pump out new things. But, you're correct. As I said, it goes back to 1980, the original Free to Choose series that Bob Chittister produced with Milton Friedman.
Yes.
That is still one of the most influential television programs out there today. If we ask young people how they learned about liberty, how they got involved in this stuff, most often Milton Friedman and Free to Choose, the old 1980 series, is how they learned.
That's fascinating. Now, did I see a children's program here, or is it just a graphic that infers some?
I hope you'll enjoy this one. So
yes,
it is a takeoff on Gulliver's Travels, as you can imagine, and it's the adventures of Jonathan Gullible. And this was a book written by a good friend of our organization, Ken Schooland. When people are trying to explain regulation, economics, et cetera, he says, nobody wants to learn this stuff, but what if I put it in the form of a fable and wrote a book about this, almost like it's, I don't want to call it a children's book either, because adults will enjoy this just as much as children will. But it's about the absurdities of things when you're looking at them from the outside world, if you will, but get ingrained within government regulation, overreach, and just horrible economic choices. And so the Jonathan Gullible series, as I said, is being released right now, and I hope people enjoy this one. We worked with an organization called Liberty International. They actually did the production on this one here, and they came to us because they wanted to reach a wider audience. And they knew that the Free to Choose Network has we've got over 200,000 subscribers on YouTube, and we built up a pretty good audience over the years where this is something that we could help them with the distribution side of this. So really happy to be working with them. Again, as I said, it's not, you may look at it as animation for kids, but I think, as I said, adults will find this just as enjoyable as children.
I see about 8 episodes here. This is quite a project then.
And if this goes well, I'm sure that Liberty International would like to continue this onward. But I do go back. We used to help Ken Schooland, the author, distribute his books, Jonathan Gullible, to schools throughout the United States. So, as I said, we have a long relationship with Ken Schooland, and his daughter, Kenley, is actually featured as one of the voiceover artists in this. So it's multi-generational, and we're happy to be working with the Schooland family.
How does this get funded? Is that your job?
That is my job. We accept and do not solicit. We do not solicit nor accept government funding. I'll just start with that one there. Almost everything comes from donations from viewers like you, listeners like you, people that are, I was going to say, individual donors and foundations. It's probably, a 50-50 split most years. But for the most part, we rely on contributions from individuals. And that is really how we get funded.
Yeah, that's like PBS. It's just about 50% corporations and endowments and grants, etc., and then everything else is membership, so to speak. But you folks have been around a long time. These programs have stood the test of time. Of all of these, do you have a favorite?
I have a couple of favorites, actually. And one thing I'd love to point out is what you just noted there. We try to make programs that are evergreen. And by evergreen, I mean, it's just as relevant today as it was when we first released it. And I'm really proud of two things we put out. Recently, we did a project with Tom Sowell. It's called Thomas Sowell, Common Sense in a Senseless World. And Thomas Sowell is a incredible author, over 40 books. The man is probably, as somebody put it, the greatest living philosopher in America today, who most people have never heard of. And, that went out on public television. I would love to tell public television they really missed the ball on this one, because I think they put it on during Black History Month on Tuesday night at 2 a.m.
Oh,
They really missed an opportunity there, because we've got about 5 million views on YouTube for this.
That's fascinating.
What I thought was most interesting is the interaction with YouTube comments, etc., and people would say, how come I've never heard of this guy before? It's like, the mass media has always tried hiding Thomas Sowell because his views are contrarian. They do not match up with what he would call the intellectual elite, especially not the urban intellectual elite, but yet his viewpoints and philosophies probably match up with your average blue collar African American urban person probably can identify more with Thomas Sowell than with the politicians who pretend to represent them. My biggest thing of this, though, is once we put the Sowell film out there and all this interaction happened, YouTube started recommending 2 of our other biographies. One was on Walter Williams, another African American who used to substitute for Rush Limbaugh on the radio show.
That's right. Yes.
And Walter is one of my favorite economists of all time. He passed away a couple years back. Also, miss the man dearly. But all of a sudden, the views on the Walter Williams biography took off. So the people who had never heard of Tom Sowell now discovered Walter Williams also, and discovered there's this whole other world of African-American thinkers out there. And once they realized that, people must like biographies by Free to Choose, then YouTube started recommending the Milton Friedman biography. And so all these things skyrocketed in views just because of the Tom Sowell project. And as I said, so I'm really proud of what that project has done in terms of opening people's eyes up to some of the older work we had done.
By the time this airs, we're all back to school. Well, the kids are anyway. You are heavily involved in production for teachers.
Absolutely. So Free to Choose Network, we do the documentary films, and then oftentimes we will take and cut those into smaller pieces, add other segments to make specific classroom videos. And the Free to Choose Network, our primary distributor for these is izzit.org, izzit.org. It's a separate but allied organization, which means that I'm also the president of that one also. But as I said, they have 2 different audiences. They have 2 different missions. And I like to say izzit.org is built by teachers for teachers. And so we've just rolled out on izzit.org the 45-minute lesson plan. And our tagline is, lesson planning is difficult, or is it? And so we want them to come to izzit.org's website and go find turnkey 45-minute lesson plans. And what these are PowerPoint slides or Google slides that a teacher can just put right into the computer, and it will ask, there will be several questions that they can ask for discussion questions with students. Then we've embedded normally 12 to 15-minute educational videos into the PowerPoint slide. And then there's what I call an enduring question. Can the students make the leap from those facts that they just learned to the philosophy? And so a great example is we did a video specifically for Izzit called Life Behind the Berlin Wall. And we feature a German historian named Rainer Zittelmann. And Rainer tells us about what life was like back in East Germany and West Germany. and we've got beautiful, beautiful footage, photography, black and white photography of old photos of East Berlin, West Berlin, and then we superimpose upon that Reiner standing in those same locations in color, telling us about what it was like. And when I say what was it like, well, what do students really care about, Tom? They care about telephones, cars, the environment, these things that students care about. And so Reiner shows them what it was like to have a telephone back in East Germany or West Germany. And the fact is that most East Germans didn't have telephones. And then we talked about vehicles, and you could, drive into a West German or a West Berlin car dealership and drive away with a Mercedes or an Audi or a VW that day. Whereas in East Germany, you could wait for 17 years to get the Trabant, the worst car in the world. And then we talk about the environment. Well, guess what? People think capitalism, those terrible capitalists are out there polluting the world. Yet when it was East Germany and West Germany, East Germany was actually the biggest polluter in all of Europe. And it's a lot of taking down myths like that. And we finally end with one of my favorite components of this, which was the man from East Germany who's helping us, explain certain things of what life was like when he was a child. Smugly looks at the camera and says, "And I finally got a place with my own bathroom at age 40."
Wow.
So when people used to have to share bathrooms back in the day in East Germany versus West Germany. So as I said, I think when students see something like this here, they find out, and the enduring question is what would you do in terms of how would you risk your life to try to escape from East Germany to West Germany? What would you risk to make your life better? And that's the philosophical point we're trying to get across. But we really are getting it across via showing the stories, showing some beautiful imagery, and comparing East Germany and West Germany. So it's a great, great teaching video.
I'm a big fan of podcasts. I wonder why. But you folks have a tremendous resource called the Free to Choose Media Podcast. How is that working for you?
So that is, I started this conversation off with the Idea channel, and I'm going to probably go right back to there to summarize our conversation today. Almost everything on our podcast is a repurpose of an Idea channel program. What we realized is these things are perfect in terms of they were the perfect length. The intellectual stimulation conversation that's going on in these things is a perfect podcast type thing. And we don't hide or make any bones about it. Almost everything that you're hearing on our podcast is from 20 or 30 years ago. And so we'll tell people that, this podcast, this conversation originally recorded in 1997, something along those lines, is still relevant today. And I think that's probably the nicest thing about our podcast. And we get a lot of great positive feedback because of people who, a lot of older listeners, by the way, they've been turned on to podcast by tuning into our podcast.
Yes.
They really appreciate the fact that we have, we just recently released something with Walter Wriston. There's a name from the past, but, anybody who remembered Walter Wriston was like, oh my gosh, this guy was a CEO and a public intellectual at the same time. There's something, once again, that's missing from today's discourse.
Can we talk for a second about the folks you work with? Tell us about your staff. You have some very talented people there. I've managed to talk to a couple. How does this all work?
I was going to say, so we are everywhere. I'll start with the team in Erie, because as I said, we've got pound for pound, dollar for dollar. Nobody does more than our team in Erie. And I say that with great pride. The team in Erie, when I first started here, I got recorded saying something, and the line that my staff at Erie loved was, I said, hey, if we can make this in Erie, then we can do anything in Erie. Okay, Erie is just, as I said, there's a lot of talent that's hidden in Erie that people don't realize. As I said, pound for pound, dollar for dollar, the folks from Erie, Pennsylvania, as I said, produce more stuff, more content, get more stuff done than any other nonprofit organization that I'm aware of, especially in the space that we have. Externally, I'm happy to say, by the way, I don't actually live in Erie, Pennsylvania. My job, as I mentioned, was going out and trying to raise funds. And so, I'm a remote person. I split my time between Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and just outside of Portland, Maine. I have teacher outreach specialists. And so they need to be where the teachers, where they have the most impact with their own teachers. So we have the former head of the New Jersey Council for Economic Education, leads my outreach for economics teachers, for example. So he's based out of New Jersey. And I have a wonderful person who is based out of Houston, Texas, who was a 20-year teacher in the public school systems near Houston. He's in charge of my outreach for social studies and civics, especially starting off in Texas. So I have people in different spots around the United States also. But as I said, the core team is still in Erie, PA.
Next couple of years, what are your aspirations? What's on the horizon?
I'll give you a few new projects. The first one is just released last week. We have now started a new project with the Wall Street Journal, and we are producing companion videos to a new monthly column written by Harvard economist Roland Fryer. And if you like Tom Sowell and you like Walter Williams, you're going to like Roland Fryer. This is someone who is able to explain economics to the average everyday person. And the Wall Street Journal really wanted us to make this a fun project. So the first column and first video is the economics of NFL running backs. Oh. So we released that just in time for the start of the NFL season. And as I said, that's the kind of stuff there where we want to have some fun with economics and show people that just about everything that they see, they can also look at through an economic lens. So that's a new project we have rolling out there. The next one is we're at the beginning stages of Free to Choose 2030. The 50th anniversary of Free to Choose, the original series, will come up on us a lot faster than we think. Mm-hmm. This will be a film project as well as a community engagement project. A little too early to give you some stuff there of what's going on, but I will tell you that we plan to create the definitive Milton Friedman artificial intelligence bot, if you will. Oh, so wow. We looking forward to being able to ask Milton some questions about today's public policy through the lens of how Milton wrote things back in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s. Last one I'd love to get across to your folks there is, speaking of Milton Friedman, our organization actually is the owner of Milton Friedman's summer home in Vermont. It's located about a half an hour away from Dartmouth College. And we bring college students to Milton Friedman's summer home to participate in student-led discussions, chapter by chapter, through Milton Friedman's books. And so I think that's pretty cool. They're learning Milton Friedman in Milton's own living room. I know we've had students from Gannon have been up there already. I invite other students from the Western Pennsylvania area if they're interested. It's mostly college students because it is a residential colloquium. They'll stay overnight for 5 or 6 nights up there. As I said, any college students or college-age students who are interested in going to the Milton Friedman home at Capitaf, you can go to capitaf.org. That's Capitaf for capitalism and freedom.
Robert Chatfield, President, Chief Executive Officer of Free to Choose, the Free to Choose Network. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day. You're on the road again, or should I say you're in the air again, so I'm very lucky to have caught you before you leave for another expedition. I believe you're traveling to another hemisphere, actually.
I am. I'm hoping a few years back, we did a program called India Awakes, and I would love to do a follow-up project with regards to that, because I do believe sincerely that as goes India, so will go the rest of the world. If India embraces free market capitalism and a representative democracy with 1 billion plus people, I believe India will surge past China economically and show people that this is the true way to the wealth of nations. And so we hope to be able to do some work with India. And again, this is a project that is several years into the future, into the making. But that is a project that is near and dear to my heart, because I sincerely believe, as I said, you have these two giant world powers with regards to India and China. And you could not pick two different systems between one controlled by the Chinese Communist Party. And if we can get India to embrace the exact opposite of that with free market capitalism and a representative republic, then I believe where people are going to see the Republic of India will thrive.
How can people get in touch with you or write to you?
info@freetochoosenetwork.org is always an easy way. You can go straight to our website, find all of our good stuff there, and you'd be surprised how accessible we are as people also. So we have live telephone customer support.
Yes,
so you can actually call our place and get a live voice.
I'm always thrilled to talk with you. I always learn several items that I feel are important in our lives. Thank you, Robert, very much for taking the time to do this discussion with us today.
Always great to be with you, Tom. Thanks so much.
Welcome to We Question and Learn, celebrating our 20th year here on the air at WQLN NPR FM 91.3. We're on NPR One and about a dozen other podcast venues. And today, very, very special guest. I'm really happy to have a chance again after many, many years. Jake, forgive me for neglecting you. Jake Rouch, and your official title now. You're the executive director at this point in time of the Erie Regional Chamber and Growth Partnership.
I'm the, sounds egotistical, but no, I'm the interim president and CEO.
Okay, that's even better. Okay. And boy, when did this change come about? Was it recently?
July 1st.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't that long ago. Well, you've been at the chamber many, many years. How long has it been?
Well, see here, I worked in Erie right out of graduate school through in 91 to like 93. And then I left and ran the Du Bois Area Chamber of Commerce and their Economic Development Corporation. And I came back to Erie in 95 to be the executive director of the Erie Conference on Community Development. Mm-hmm. And then in 2002, we merged the Erie Conference with the Erie Area Chamber of Commerce. And so I've been with the chamber since 2002.
Great. And since then, things have changed quite a bit. There was a lot of effort to enhance the value of the Erie Regional Chamber and Growth Partnership, if I can remember the story correctly. What is your memory of the transition back, can I say, in the old days?
Sure. Well, let's just, I guess what I would say is that the original vision was that we knew that there was a need to keep obviously a business organization, membership organization like the chamber when we merged the two entities. But the Erie Conference's role was really that was a CEO only organization, and they focused on longer term strategic initiatives that would help improve the Erie region. So there was the most classic traditional thing that they did for years was under the leadership of Tom Hoffman. They really were the business might, making sure that the Interstate 79 didn't just stop at I-90, that it continued all the way to 12th Street, and then they continued to lobby and fight to get it down to State Street, and then ultimately the final leg, the East Side Connector. And then when I came on, we looked at a lot of different initiatives in the community. We were involved with others in both the creation of the hotel motel tax through the Third Class County Convention Center Authority Act, which led to the building of the convention center and financial support for the ballpark, the arena, and the Warner. We did a lot of work at that time looking at regional government in the region, and we had a regional government opportunities task force and looked really at a lot of different services and the like. And so there were strategic initiatives like that. There was a group, frankly, that looked at countywide 911 back in 97. We began work with the airport, believe it or not, in around 97, 98, 99 on their plan to extend the runway. So there's been a lot of longer term strategic initiatives that they were involved in. And when we formed the chamber, the idea was to continue the chamber, but to have the growth partnership work on the strategic initiatives. And we did that for several years under the leadership. The growth partnership was led by Mary Beulah, who's now with Erie Together. Mm-hmm. And that group would identify a variety of issues that they felt were important. Then they'd prioritize them and they'd develop white papers on approaches to moving those forward. And so as we evolved over time, the strategic initiatives and the kind of the dedicated work, Mary left the chamber and went to pursue the Erie Together work. And so we've evolved over time. We've always had a centralized focus on economic development. and all aspects of that, with a central focus on trying to not be a competitor in any capacity with other entities, but to be the gateway into that system, to find out what businesses need and then proactively get them connected. And then over time, we've absorbed into our operation activities and functions that were valuable to the community. So one would be, there was a former group called the Innovation District. And when that organization went away, one of the pieces that they had was a technology accelerator, where you're looking for companies around the country, around the world, that have innovative technologies within a particular sector. Could be manufacturing, could be insurance, could be finance. And you bring them to Erie and you make an equity investment. You actually invest money into those entities with the hope that they will get sticky and stay in the Erie market. And that was to help bolster and grow what has been up to that point was an underperforming tech sector in the Erie region. And that was a very innovative program, not uncommon around the country, but very unique to Erie. And it has helped significantly in both those companies. Over 50% of them have customers here, employees here, have set up operations in the Erie market in some capacity, smaller, nothing significant at this stage, but still. And we stay connected with them. There's been over 40 of those companies. And but equally along the 20 plus years, there's been some just really transformational work done in the arena of innovation and entrepreneurship. And there was a group years ago that Beth Zimmer started called the Innovation Collaborative, which really kind of called out the economic development system for its lack of work in that space. And to her credit, I think she kind of lit a fire under a lot of organizations and individuals. And today we have an incredibly robust entrepreneurial and innovation related, technology related ecosystem. And those players that are contributing go well beyond. So we do our piece on the on the accelerator program. We also have created an angel investment fund here. But the innovation and entrepreneurship space has been bolstered dramatically by Radius Cowork and Sean Fedorko and his work there. Brian Slawins came to the market 6-7 years ago to run Ben Franklin Technology Partners and has done an incredible job. There have been small micro grant programs run by the city and or sponsored by the city and run by Paramount Pursuits, Trish Digliotto, and those thrive. And Kiva, the Erie County Redevelopment Authority, Tina Mangine and Chris Groner have managed funding for small businesses throughout the pandemic and through the arts. So there's a tremendous volume. The Small Business Development Center obviously is assisting small business formation all the time. And what we've seen is over the years is just an incredible hatching of what has happened for years, which is entrepreneurship is the backbone of Erie, people owning and starting companies, but we're seeing it on a smaller sized business scale, and some of them are growing into it. So there's been a consistent and great, and it should evolve. Erie is not a static economy. It's ever evolving. And we need to be responsive to that and supportive to that so that it can continue to do so.
How many members are in the chamber?
It fluctuates up and down. Right now, we're at about 560 businesses.
Oh my goodness, that's quite a group. That's wonderful. I remember it being more, but when you take into consideration everything that's happened over the last 10, 20 years, that's a good number of folks. Now, how often does the chamber meet? How often does your team meet at the chamber?
Well, the staff meets every day. No, we have.
I'm not laughing at you. I'm proud of you for keeping everybody motivated.
Yeah, no, we have The board of directors presently meets on a quarterly basis.
There you go.
The executive committee meets right now. We're meeting monthly. The finance committee meets monthly. So we have a series of committees: economic development, government affairs, governance and bylaws, business engagement, and executive committee, and so those committees are meeting all the time. Then we have the chamber members. We have a series of events. So at least one of these happens every month. We'll have a business after hours hosted by a company where we invite all of our members, and they invite both their members, they invite their customers and their employees. It's a kind of the high end. It's kind of like the networking event for the masses. Those happen 4 to 6 times a year. They're a little bigger opportunity where you're going to get, 80 to 150 people assembling together. We have morning meetings limited to 30, which we call Connect for Coffee. That's an opportunity for those businesses that are there to give a 2-minute elevator pitch on who they are and what they do, and network and connect. Those are very useful time for all the people who go. We have business and brewskis, and that's at the end of the day. And we do at least one of those a month or every other month. That's where we go to a local institution that serves libations. And at those meetings, it's similar to the Connect for Coffee. It's limited to 30, but it's more like speed dating. So half the room stays table and the other half rotates, and they do the same thing. And it is intentional time for 2 businesses to kind of share their story with one another, and out of that grow their network and grow their understanding of the availability in the community. Then we have Tuit Talks, which is really kind of like happy hour, where it's just we're going to pick a place to support that business and get members to come together, and there is no structured format. We have our Erie Ambassador program, which is capped at 30 attendees per year. That's a 8-week program, basically a half a day every Tuesday or Wednesday. That day may change, and they get into particular aspects of our community, businesses or a sector, and get kind of an intensive deep dive into those businesses to deepen their awareness and understanding. And it also is a kind of you're kind of in class with 30 other business leaders in the community for an extended period. So it helps build a network there. And then we have our signature events, our annual meeting, our celebration of excellence, our Erie homecoming, and our golf outing. And so there's a lot of programming and activity that happens on an ongoing basis, in addition to our daily work and information sharing.
That's incredible. You also have, I think, 4 programs that are very important. Let me start by asking you about the Erie Ambassador program. How does that work?
Well, as I said, there's 30 individuals. It's capped at 30, and we rotate around. So what we try to do is we try to mix it by visiting different sectors. So we want to visit something in tourism, something in manufacturing, something in healthcare, something in service, and then we equally try to balance in or move into their entities that are in the public domain more so. And then we also like to just go to assets in the region. And sometimes we mix them. So sometimes we may go to an asset and visit, for instance, Port Farms, but the speakers there are covering another topic, such as rural development or impact quarry. And I always tell that class beforehand. They said, I'll bet $1,000 that if you can pass a lie detector test at the end of this program, and I didn't learn anything about Erie, I'll pay $1,000. And I'm very confident in that bet every year, because when you go and get a deep dive into the Erie Waterworks, when you go and get a deep dive into how PennDOT works, when you get behind the scenes and are able to tour Smith Provisions, or you're able to tour JTM Foods. There's so many businesses out there that you've driven by for years, or you didn't even know they existed. One of my favorite is recently, I think we did Berry Plastics, and
yes.
Did an expansion in partnership with the Erie County Redevelopment Authority in Little Italy, and that plant on an annual basis makes 4 billion caps for Pepsi and Coke products.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
It's amazing. And I would say 99% of Erie County doesn't even know where that plant is, but it's just off Liberty Street. 4 billion caps a year. So that's a really exciting program. And again, that's the educational side, but then the positive side is the networking and the friendships and partnerships that come out of that. One
program I ran across, Jordan Fuller and the Fire Accelerator program. How is that going?
Well, it's going really well. It continues to evolve. As I briefly touched on before, the way in which an accelerator occurs, and through the first 7 years of that program, the funding support was provided by the Erie Community Foundation and Erie Insurance to the chamber. There is some administration overhead that helps cover Jordan's work and activity, but we've made investments in 44 companies over that time frame. And the game plan is that, and out of those 44, I think about 38 are still businesses that are still in existence, which for an accelerator is an incredibly high batting average. Given our age, you'd expect half of those companies to disappear. And you might say, well, why are you doing that? Well, we're doing it because number one is we're picking those companies based upon the uniqueness, the disruptive aspect of their technology in all different sectors. So when you bring companies to town that have unique, innovative tech solutions for manufacturing companies, we have a great ability then to connect them directly to potential customers here. And that's a win-win, because the customer, if they bite into the apple, gets a tool that's technology driven and exposes them to maybe a new way of thinking or approaching an ongoing problem. And the company gets a customer out of it. And so we've done that in financial technologies, insurance technologies, just educational related technologies, manufacturing technologies. And then the goal is that our investment stays with them. And when that company is acquired or goes public, then we get a return on that investment, and that the return on those investments, which should be happening in the next 2 to 3 years, because it's about a 7-year cycle. That's what you plan on. The return on those investments will come back here and populate and support the program into the future. And out of those companies, I would say there is one company that is on a legitimate path to an initial public offering, an IPO. And to have one that is legitimately on that track in a very unique space is frankly incredible, because you can have venture capital firms that are making hundreds of investments before they have one that's an IPO. So we're excited about that program. But it really is the richness of those people come to Erie, and they love Erie because Erie connects them to partners and real life opportunities.
I was reading a little bit about the ICE Angel Education Program. How's that going?
Yep. So the ICE Educational Program, ICE stands for Innovation Community of Erie. And there's an educational component, and then there's a venture investment firm side of it, fund. And so the ICE Education Program is a partnership we formed with the Angel Capital Association of America. And we bring in top flight instructors that are angel investors, meaning angels are individuals who come in at smaller dollar amounts, say 150,000 or less.
Mm-hmm.
Many times it could be 25, 50. And what they do is that the purpose of it is twofold. Number one, it is to educate folks in the economic development world, but really individual investors who are interested in taking some of the resources that they have and investing in these early stage companies locally. They could be part of our accelerator. They could just be a local company who's looking for investment capital, and educate them on the process and how to look at a company and do good, solid due diligence on that company. The questions to ask, the ways in which your investment can be structured, as well as how you could get paid on the back end, red flags to look for, as well as key questions to ask a potential investor. And then we also, in that, have all of our accelerator companies go through it. So they basically get educated on the other side. So they sit in there and they start to get a better feel for what are people looking for, which helps those companies formulate better pitches and strategies on how they build their companies. And then the ICE Angel Fund is comprised of, right now, about 15 individuals and institutions who've each put in, bought shares in the fund. And the share costs $25,000 for an individual, $50,000 for an institution. It has about $850,000. It is member driven, so they review projects to make investments, and then they collectively make a decision to make an investment. And to date, and I do not have the names of those companies, but they have made commitments to invest in 2 companies. So it isn't, they don't invest in everything. They go through a very thorough process of looking at companies, but they have lots of deals that they can potentially invest in. And those investments could be in Erie, or they could be outside of Erie. They're investors, so they're looking for deals to make investments into, so we don't constrain them on that front.
Before we run out of time, we do have a few minutes though. Talk about your staff. How are you organized? How do you manage to get all this tremendous work done?
Well, we work everyone here is kind of cross-trained to be able to do a little bit of everything that we have to have done, and then we have core responsibilities. So Jordan Fuller handles all of our entrepreneurial, the Accelerate Fire, ICE, handles any work that we're doing in the entrepreneurial space, and then picks up and supports the balance of the team wherever possible. Our director of operations, Melanie Spader, she handles anything that's related to the finances of the organization and the operations of the organization, but equally then rolls up her sleeves and gets involved in the programming side of it, the events and the marketing. Curtis Jones is our director of government affairs and is our primary point of contact for any business that has a concern or a need relative to permitting, regulation, works with the state and the federal level officials to make sure they're connected to businesses here in town that are seeking state or federal funding, and building awareness on that front. Lisa Songer is our manager of marketing and events. So all of those things, the ambassadors, the To It Talks, the Business and Brewskis, the signature events. She's responsible for planning those events, securing sponsorship for them, as well as marketing those events. And Del Birch is our business outreach specialist. So when companies have a challenge or a need, Del goes and meets with them personally and makes sure that they get connected to the right resource in the economic development system that can best meet their need. And then I'm working with the board and our top investors and members in general. And so everything that I just described to all of them doing, I have a hand in some capacity. And membership, we're down a couple of bodies right now. and we'll be filling those in the coming months. But we do want to add on someone focused on the membership side of it. So the first goal for us right now is we want to make sure that everyone who is a member is getting serviced at the highest level, and we retain those members, which we do have a high retention rate. And then we want to get out to the larger market to get more members in, because one of the things that we don't want anyone to ever think is that you have to be invited to be a member. You don't. Membership in the chamber is open to any and all businesses. You get out of it what you put into it. And so you have to take advantage of both the staff and the events and activities. And some might say, well, is it going to pay off for me? And the reality is that you could be a member for a year or two and you quote unquote didn't get paid off, but all it takes is one connection that leads to one door opening, that leads to a customer that could frankly pay for your membership for a decade or more. And so we don't guarantee business. What we do is we try to create pathways and opportunities for people to do business with one another.
Let's talk about something very important right now. Tell me about your board, how large it is, who gets to be on it, how does that all work?
So the board is right now about 30 members. We intentionally go after a very diverse cross section of industry sectors. We have took to heart the Erie Community Foundation and nonprofit partnerships diversity pledge. So we seek diversity among the makeup of the board, both from a racial standpoint and men and women. We intentionally go after people that are not just running a good business, regardless of size, but are also engaged in the community. And so the makeup of the board is there is a governance and bylaws committee, and they review names that are forwarded to them by the staff, by individuals who've reached out and said, I'm interested in serving on the board. And they evaluate the board's composition presently from all those variables I talked about before. And then they make recommendations. And every year at our annual meeting, there's a slate of board members that are up for renewal. And there's some that have termed out, so they move off. And then there's some that are put on. And then the chair of the board has the privilege of making, I believe it's up to 3 chair appointments, and those are for a 1-year term.
This is a wonderful list. I encourage people to go to your website, first of all, and what a tremendous outline on all the good things you do, and the board list is very impressive. And it says to me that all these people are very, very concerned about Northwest Pennsylvania, Erie, Pennsylvania, and are great supporters of the Erie Regional Chamber and Growth Partnership.
Yeah, we have a great board, a very interested board, and our job from a staff level is to make sure that they're as informed as possible and that we bring to them the right questions where we need their guidance and input and direction and support. And so their service is greatly valued, and you're 100% right. They recognize that while maybe what we're doing doesn't help them directly, some of the larger businesses, they recognize the value of what the chamber can bring and what it does for so many other businesses in the community. And they want to be a part of that, and they want the business community to have a voice when decisions are being made throughout the region on a variety of matters.
You expressed that very well. Thank you. Jake, this has been a real honor and a pleasure to be able to catch up with you again. I apologize for taking too many years. And as the interim president and chief executive officer, we wish you the best. I already hear that you and your team and your board are doing a great job for our area. Thank you very much for being with us today.
You bet, Tom. It's a pleasure to be here.